During a store robbery, Warren McCluskey, an African-American man, shot and killed Frank Schlatt, a Caucasian Atlanta, Georgia, police officer. McCluskey was convicted of 2 counts of armed robbery and 1 count of murder in the Superior Court of Fulton County, Georgia, on October 12, 1978. The jury recommended the death penalty as punishment for McCluskey. He received the death sentence. He then unsuccessfully sought post-conviction relief at the state level in the state courts. Then he filed for habeas corpus relief at the federal level in the federal courts. McCluskey raised 2 claims. The first one was that there was intentional racial discrimination against him due to his race and the race of the police officer that he killed. The second claim was that there was too much of a risk that race was influencing the death penalty in the state of Georgia. His evidence was the Baldus studies, a pair of studies done by David Baldus, a law professor at the University of Iowa. The Baldus study consisted of 2 studies, the procedural reform study and the charging and sentencing study. The more important study that was used in this case was the charging and sentencing study. The study looked at the 2,484 homicide cases that took place in Georgia between 1973 and 1979. This study claims to show inconsistency in the imposition of the death sentence in the state of Georgia based on the murder victim's race and the defendant's race. Baldus and his colleagues performed a multiple regression analysis, which is a statistical process for estimating the relationships among variables to take into account all 232 variables in order to determine how they affected who eventually received the death penalty. What they found. Baldus and his colleagues found that a black defendant charged with the murder of a white person is 4.3 times more likely to receive the death sentence than if he or she were charged with the murder of a black person. The study also found that in instances where a Caucasian victim was killed by an African American defendant, the defendant was 22 times more likely to be sentenced to death than if the victim was also African American. In addition, the study suggested that prosecutors were significantly more likely to seek the death penalty for African American defendants than for Caucasian defendants. Procedural history. The district court did not find the statistics were completely valid, so they denied his claim. In addition, they found several weaknesses in the study. These include incomplete data, unknown variables, and unorganized methodology. The Court of Appeals assumed that the study was valid, but did not find that the statistics demonstrated unconstitutional discrimination or irrationality. In essence, they found that the study did not demonstrate his 8th or 14th Amendment claims. The Supreme Court affirmed the Court of Appeals decision. Supreme Court decision. The Supreme Court rejected McCluskey's claim, citing that in cases contending racial discrimination, the defendant has to prove that the decision makers, for example the jury, has to have acted with discriminatory rationale in that specific case. In addition, they found that the statistical evidence showing discrimination throughout the state of Georgia was not ample proof that discrimination took part in the sentencing. Four years after the Supreme Court's decision, on September 25, 1991, Warren McCluskey was strapped to an electric chair and was executed.